Hi there and welcome to Serenity Forum. This is going to be where I talk about symptoms of a certain diversity or difficulties within a certain diversity and talk about ways to combat or mitigate that difference. This week we are talking about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, otherwise known as ADHD. This is the diversity that I have. I'm not going to call it a disorder, even though that's what the last D stands for. But there are lots of different aspects that ADHDers have that are very difficult to deal with in day-to-day life. I am here to talk about a few of them. Besides the hyperactivity in the mind and body, one symptom of ADHD is executive function disorder. This is when you have trouble starting, stopping, or fully completing a task. Like, I have trouble with the laundry. I can start it just fine, as in get the laundry from the dirty clothes pile into the washing machine, into the dryer. I can get it into the dryer and get it dried just fine. I have trouble getting it from the dryer to the clean clothes place, and from the clean clothes place folded and put away. So that's my EFD. And one way to mitigate this is associating the task with another task, such as getting the clothes from the dryer to the clean clothes place by starting another load of laundry. You have to get it out of the dryer so the next load can get in, which really only works until you run out of laundry. For not completing a task, a good way to do that is if you have something that you can do only after you have done this task. I can only play games on my Chromebook after I record all of my videos for the day. And that helps me remember, even though sometimes I don't like taking as many videos as I do, it is for a good cause and I need to get it done. And I really like the games that I have on my Chromebook. And for missing steps or not fully completing a project, break it down into a schedule. Like, this is the step I need to do, this is the next step I need to do, this is the next step I need to do. I do that a lot with dishes because I will forget. I will leave it at a soaked state or something like that, and it ends up with dishes piling up, which is not very good. This is me skipping steps or not completing a task. So yeah, my big skip a step is the drying and putting away dishes, actually. So clean dishes will pile up and I will forget I need a clean dish rack so I can put the dishes to dry, and I can't have a clean dish rack if I leave the clean dishes in the dish rack. Sorry, the talking is ADHD, hyperactivity of the mind, and it comes out in word vomit. Another symptom or aspect of ADHD is reduction sensitive dysphoria. This is where you overreact to a perceived slight and you kind of end up hurting yourself in the process, not to mention possibly hurting others. This is mostly emotional. There is obviously the overreaction part. There is the jumping to conclusions, and there's holding grudges. To be able to calm down the jumping to conclusions, which will help to lessen triggering the RSD. If you think somebody is rejecting you or criticizing you in a negative way, stop yourself and ask them what they meant by the action or words. Have them explain themselves so that you can hear from their own mouth that they are not rejecting you, they don't hate you. I tend to walk away when something like this happens, which helps me calm down, which calms the overreacting bit, but it does not help the jumping to conclusions bit. If you get the explanation and you still feel like reacting rather strongly to the perceived negative stimulus, excuse yourself from the situation. And I don't mean just walking off. I tried doing that, and apparently just walking off made me seem like I was avoiding. So I had to explain that this wasn't going to happen, or this wasn't what was happening. And now if I feel like I have to walk away, I know I need to say, I need to remove myself from the situation, I will be back later. That way they know that I need time to calm down. And the last aspect is holding grudges. Not everybody has this. I tend to. You can blame it on my zodiac sign or whatever. But I do tend to hold grudges. So if I have a perceived slight that, even though has been explained to me that it wasn't meant to be, and I have walked away and I still feel like this is the wrong thing, then my next step is to hold a grudge, and this is not what you should do. If you still feel hurt about it after you get the explanation and you have gone to calm down, as soon as you have calmed down, come back to the situation and explain it. And I know this is very difficult because of the hyperactive mind part, but it is a very important step. Explaining how you feel and getting that discourse between you and the person who triggered the RSD is a very good way to get this problem fixed. The last symptom or aspect we're going to talk about today is time blindness or hyperfocus. This is where you find an activity and you get lost in it. I get time blind when I read, and so I will lose hours in a fanfic or a book. And that is one of the biggest aspects of being time blind, is losing time in an activity. So this is, you start reading at noon and the next thing you know, you're looking at the clock and it's 3. This is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a great way to combat being bored. But if you have stuff you need to do, don't do the activity you get lost in early in the day. Leave it for before bed, and have an alarm to go, this is bedtime. So you don't over lose time. And remember, any book or fanfic or story that you're reading can always be paused. You can always put a bookmark in. They actually have bookmarks that show you the exact word you left off on, which is really neat if you're reading a physical book. So that is the tool for losing time. is moving your time blind activity to the afternoon or evening, or like if you're a third shifter, the end of your day. Then it's not so much a problem if you do that activity. Another aspect of time blindness is not being able to judge how much time is needed or how much time has passed. I find this one when I'm writing out recipes. I think 15 minutes in the oven is absolutely fine for an egg dish, and sometimes you need 20 or 25. Sometimes I will end up cooking over medium eggs, and I like mine over easy just because I like the runny eggs. Just because I can't judge how long an egg needs to take. If you're waiting, like in the waiting room, this is where it happens a lot. You will have an appointment at 1:30 and you show up at 1 and you're sitting in the waiting room and you think you've spent so much time in there and you're maybe only 15 minutes late and it feels like an hour. This is subjective time, which is kind of distorted for ADHDers. So a good way to fix this is to have timers if you need them. So look up a recipe and the recipe says for an over easy egg, cook 5 minutes on each side. So you crack the egg in the pan and you set a timer for 5 minutes, and you come back and you flip the egg and you set another timer for 5 minutes, and then you take the egg off the stove and you eat the egg. I do this quite frequently when I cook chicken at the beginning of the week, because I know it takes an hour in a hot oven and 20 minutes in a cooling oven for boneless, skinless chicken breast. Nice little tip. Bulk cook your chicken at the beginning of the week. Hyperactive mind, and I just shut down. Digressing. So that is a really good tip for subjective time distortions, losing track of how much time has passed. Use a timer. They're actually really useful for things that you need specific amount of time for. The last bit is mostly for the actual hyperfocus, which goes to the lost time thing, is tuning out your surroundings. So sometimes I'll have my nose in a book or in a fanfic on my phone, and I won't hear the cat scratching at the litter box. I won't hear knocks at the door, although the doorbell will get my attention. So if you lose track of your surroundings, I would have a timer sitting next to you or on the device that you are doing your time blind hyperfocus activity, and have a check your surroundings timer. You can't exactly stop the hyperfocus. It is a very difficult thing to mitigate. In my live video on Wednesday, I told you about the story of my dad saying that I lost like $50 because I couldn't hear him and he was sitting like 2 feet behind me. So stuff like that. Definitely try and stay aware of your surroundings. If you have to read a couple chapters and put the device down and actually look around, have a conversation with somebody instead of doing a passive activity like reading. Multitask if you can. Dividing your focus will help you not hyper focus. So so like watching a show and taking notes, or listening to music and reading a book. Divide your focus so it doesn't get all dumped into one thing. It makes it easier to pay attention to your surroundings. And that's everything for the Friday Forum. As always, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Check out Patreon at www.patreon.com/SerenityVlog. I have a Discord, though I don't have a link that I can just shout out for you. Check the Facebook and Twitter page for links. I will try and get those up as soon as I can. And yeah, check out Facebook, Twitter, and obviously if you're watching this, you're on YouTube. This is Phoenix signing off, and I will see y'all next week.